With all the talk of Nico Hulkenberg saying that he must find a new team if he wants to develop his talent into having some sort of results in his entire Formula One career, we must remember that he still holds the record for the most Grand Prix starts at 192 without even a podium finish. Now, he's chasing one other record, which is probably the record most F1 drivers would want to avoid. It's the most races without a victory. As of right now, Andre De Cesaris, or Andre De Cesaris, whether you knew his name one of two ways, has the record at 206. Now, Hulkenberg is at 192, so he'll actually need next season, which I think he'll probably obviously be signed up for, considering he's performing way better than Kevin Magnussen, and if either one of those guys are going to retain their seat, it's definitely going to be Nico Hulkenberg. Now, you really have to dive into Nico Hulkenberg's career to figure out what really happened, because he seemed to have such a good start. And for anybody who's been watching Formula One for a long time, there was this time right before Vettel's streak of all his championships with Red Bull that Nico Hulkenberg was at Williams, and he somehow in a Williams that it wasn't much better than it is now. They were scoring a couple points, but again, they were one of the bottom teams. He was able to get a podium at the German Grand Prix, and there was this weird transient moment where Michael Schumacher almost seemed to be passing the torch, saying, "This is the new German driver." He gave him a hug. It was big. It was all over television. It was all over the news everywhere that this guy essentially is taking the mantle up for Michael Schumacher. This guy is a wonderkind. He's just like Schumacher. He was in a team that couldn't perform, couldn't do well, but he was able to do so much with so little in a car. And ever since then, it's been a total drop-off. After that season, he didn't have a ride. He was testing for Force India, and then he drove for Force India. And he's almost become this journeyman figure. You know, he's gotten a lot of teams to hire him because they were mid-pack teams, almost like how, you know, the Alpine is a mid-pack team now, what Aston Martin was last season, what they are actually becoming after the Hungarian Grand Prix. And he was always known as a guy who could get in a car and do exceptionally well for what he's given. Now, there was this big time where he could have gotten into Ferrari, and it was all but sealed. But the chair of Ferrari at the time, Luca de Montezemolo, who's no longer the chair at Ferrari anymore after all of the horrendous seasons they've had, actually axed him at the last second. He almost did a U.S. presidential situation where he vetoed his ability to come in only because he said so. Everybody else was on board. Everybody else was willing to accept him. He said, no, I want to bring Kimi Räikkönen back. And that was a terrible decision, not only for Nico Hulkenberg, but for Ferrari, because for years later, Kimi never challenged Vettel to be better than he could be. Vettel probably had more success than Leclerc or Sainz is having in Ferrari, but there's so much more he could have attained. And if Nico Hulkenberg was given that seat, there's no doubt that he would have had a podium and at least a couple of victories, if not more. After that time, he pretty much got relegated again. Mid-pack teams, Renault. He drove with Renault for, 3 years. He drove next to Ricciardo, who again couldn't handle the pressure at Red Bull, had to come over. And then he kind of just became a reserve driver after 2019. In 2020, he came in for, the BTW Racing Point team, which is now Alpine, to replace a sick driver 2 different times. Got points for both of the races, but again, you got to remember, Perez did win in that car, so that's not really that impressive. Then he came back for Aston Martin. He was the test driver for them last season, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia. And this season for Haas, he's doing much better than Kevin Magnussen, but I think we already knew he was a better driver than Kevin Magnussen. Kevin Magnussen had his shot. He was given a McLaren seat at like the age of 19, got his first and only podium on his first race into second place, and then kind of just stagnated and bounced around from team to team, left for a season, came back, left again, and got lucky because Nikita Mazepin sucked so much and Haas so badly needed a replacement driver that they put him in. So you've got this guy now who has these records and is getting older too. I mean, he's been in Formula One since 2010. I don't know how many other drivers can really say that, probably other than Alonso, Hamilton. Yeah, probably those 2 drivers. He's 35 now. He'll be 36 soon, and he only has a couple seasons left. Could he possibly go to an Alfa Romeo, be a journey driver there. But then again, all these teams that are at his, his beck and call, his options, he's not going to get a Red Bull seat. He's not going to get a Mercedes seat. And the McLaren scene ain't happening either. So most likely this guy will hang on for how many seasons left does he have? He'll probably be in Haas next season if he performs just as well and beats whether it's Magnussen or a new guy, which I believe they'll put into that team. If he just keeps beating them and just keeps being a journeyman driver, he'll be able to stay in Formula One. But he really will not have had the impact that a driver with all his experience, with all his talent could have had in Formula One. Thanks for watching my video. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and let me know your feelings on Nico Hulkenberg.